In this episode of Need to Know Influencer Marketing, we're going to talk about when influencers go bad. Hi, marketing fanatics. I'm Mark Fidelman of Fanatics Media. Joining me is Gil Ayal, CEO of Hyper. Gil, the week today, we're going to talk about how influencers, when they go bad, what brands should do, and maybe some examples of some of the influencers that have gone bad. So I'm going to let you start with your first influencer gone bad and what happened.
So my favorite story is obviously Jared from Subway. How can it go any worse than that? You know, basically child porn, anything you want out of a telenovela story. Even their sandwiches look like a male organ. I mean, what else can you ask for?
Yikes. And how did you think Subway handled it?
I think they distanced themselves, which was great, and I think it's probably the best thing to do. But I think the real way to handle it is to preempt and move forward. You can't be recognized with just one individual face. And I think they got to the point where this nobody became the face of the brand, and that's what put them in harm's way.
Okay, mine's a recent example. That would be Jake Paul and his LA neighborhood and how Disney's now dumped him. I don't think Jake Paul deserved to be dumped by Disney myself, but Jake certainly didn't do himself any favors by getting into trouble with his LA neighborhood and then seeming to flaunt the fact that his neighbors hated him. I think I would have shot a video with me going around to the neighbors and apologizing, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, we see celebrities and influencers do this nonsense all the time. Ryan Lochte pretty much making up getting robbed. You know, that kind of behavior is one that sometimes you risk by associating yourself with an influencer.
Yeah, I mean, I look at PewDiePie and kind of his Nazi stuff. I honestly, I didn't think it was serious. I didn't think it was a big deal, but he got hammered for it. So what are the lessons here for both brands and influencers? You know, because influencers need to stay creative. They're almost like comedians in some sense, where they got to push the limit. But sometimes when they push the limit, they get into trouble, whether it's justified or not.
Yeah, I think in the PewDiePie case is a classic example of the brand doing more harm than helping themselves. They should have taken it for what it was, which was a bad joke. I don't think he's a neo-Nazi, and anybody who speaks with him will see he's not. And by overreacting to it, they amplified it instead of saying, "Okay, look, we're going to improve our platform. We're gonna learn what we need to learn from this." They took their biggest moneymaker and basically kicked him out of the game. I don't know if that was the right choice for YouTube and Google, and I think probably unfair to the influencer as well.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I mean, it seems like everyone on social media is just waiting to be outraged. And if some of us more rational people don't push back on the irrational outrage, then I think we're going to just become, an influencer marketing industry of fear, and nothing's ever going to get done. My advice on the brand side is, hey, stick by your man. If what they've done is, kind of like PewDiePie, which is a big, pile of nothing, or like Jake Paul with his LA neighborhood, maybe if I were Disney, I would have come in and with Jake, I would have done some cold knocking on doors with Mickey Mouse. I don't know. I would have done something like that.
I'm with you, but I think the funny thing is, some brands can get away with anything. I don't know if you know this story. A few years ago, Joan Rivers was hired by Apple to promote whatever the new iPhone at the time was. And unfortunately, she passed away before the posts went live, but somebody neglected to turn off the auto post. So 3 or 4 days after she passed away, there was a post completely not in Joan Rivers' language, which was very, very harsh and forward. Oh, I'm just loving my iPhone 6, loving the fact that it's a little thinner than, and I don't know if it was iPhone 6. But the long story short is no disclosure and hardly any backlash. And I think it's because it's a brand that's built a relationship with their audience, and it's a brand that's not reliant on just that one influencer or just that one celebrity. So, okay, there was a blunder, and you move on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you got that kind of relation with your audience, I mean, you've done a phenomenal job, and it's tough to compare anyone to Apple. I just feel like Apple's just this unique animal, right, that nobody else can touch. Maybe Facebook, although Facebook takes a lot of heat for some of the things that's posted on Facebook, but Apple's kind of unique out there. But my lesson for brands or should say my second lesson for brands is to be very selective about who you kind of get married to or attached to. Not unlike a typical relationship in the real world. So it reduces the risk and it reduces the possibility that it'll end up being another Jake Paul or another PewDiePie.
Well, sometimes it's not about bad behavior. Sometimes it's total betrayal. If we look at Verizon and the "Can you hear me now" guy, basically taking all the equity that they built. I mean, he was nobody, and taking it over to the neighbors and making them using it against them, even worse. And one other brand I want to look at that's always the victim seems to be Nike, but they bounce back. Obviously Tiger Woods, obviously Lance Armstrong, which I actually had to deal with at the same time when his drug confession happened. From our perspective, when Lance Armstrong, confessed and decided to kind of continue to be defiant and say that he doesn't see anything wrong with it, we benefited greatly from the press. And part of it was that we were working with a lot of different celebrities at the same time. So it wasn't just that we were associated with one celebrity, but the fact that he got so much press, we were mentioned many, many more times than maybe before the confession.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we've brought up so many relative examples that people really need to study and pay attention to. But I think, these are all mostly outliers. I mean, of all the influencer marketing that's done, 99.9% of it is pretty safe. And to worry about it, I wouldn't put a lot of effort into worrying about it. I would put a lot of upfront effort into, okay, I've seen the last 10 things that this influencer's done, and I can get a feel for what they're going to do with me. And if it works, then go forward. If not, then have a mitigation plan in place, a risk mitigation plan in place so that you can divorce yourself pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And remember, we live in an environment where somebody's going to screw up in 3 days. So it's okay. Somebody else is going to capture the news.
Okay, well, Gil, with that, where can people find Hyper if you want to check them out, at least their stats and some of their background information?
We're at www.hyprbrands.com.
Okay, and we recommend Hyper. That's who we use. So go to their site. I think there's some kind of offering going on right now. Am I right about that?
There's always an offering or two.
Thanks, Gil. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.